Hi, everyone. Oh, Sharon, I see double. Are you joining from two devices? Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining this um, eighth episode, I believe, of the Impressionist and Post-Impressionist art collection of the Hermitage Museum. And tonight we continue our exploration of the treasures of the General Staff Building. I remind you, this is the General Staff Building at the Palace Square of St. Petersburg. This building overlooks the building of the Winter Palace, which is the main building in the Hermitage Museum complex. And we have done already many tours. We've seen a lot of Impressionists, Monet, Renoir, Van Gogh, Degas, Cézanne, Gauguin, and who else? Now we are exploring the art of so-called Nabi movement, artists of Nabi movement, all the prophets from Hebrew. Hi, good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Great to see you, Carla. Thank you. We have about a couple minutes before we begin, and I would really prefer to start as soon as possible because we have a lot to cover. And I have prepared a little surprise for you in connection with Easter. It's just a very timely coincidence, I would say, that tonight we're planning to pass by a very special room in the General Staff Building. I wasn't really originally going to take you there because it's really off topic. It's not about Impressionists, but I hope, and I think you will find it interesting. So before we begin, I have just shared with you the links for the next weekend, and there's going to be a lot of tours. And the next episode for the Hermitage collection is already up. Next time we are talking about Pablo Picasso. There are dozens of works of Picasso in the Hermitage collection, different periods. Well, blue period, pink period, cubism, loads of things. And I would also be including the stories, behind art, something other than art, because the connections between, Russia and Picasso are quite interesting and curious. And I would say, if there hadn't been I would say involvement of Picasso through some for some other people, it's quite likely we wouldn't have been able to see this collection. So that's quite, yeah, I would say I'll keep it like this, and we'll talk about it next time. I'm not sure whether we'll have enough time to cover everything about Picasso in just one tour. We'll see how it goes. And of course, here is the link to my website where you can also start booking the tours, and my PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee, and my YouTube channel. Already on my YouTube channel, you can watch the recording of the live stream in Sololaki in Tbilisi, which we did a couple of hours ago with Grisha. We had so much fun, and Grisha had a treat after that. I treated him to a sushi with cucumber. He likes it very much, so we try to keep it healthy. And it's time for big art. We continue with Nabi, and actually now in this episode we're going to travel to Moscow, sort of, kind of, and then I'll be taking you back to St. Petersburg, and then we'll be going to the 19th century. Anyway, yeah, sure. Well, I try to measure pizza. I try to limit it to one, sometimes two pizzas per week, but this is a rare case because, obviously. Anyway, so let's start because again, I want to make sure we have enough time for everything, for the nubbies and for the little surprise. So I'll start sharing the screen and I'll be disabling the chat as usual. If you missed any of the previous episodes, you know, you can contact me and I will share the recordings. And well, if you have to leave earlier or for someone coming late, you know that I will be keeping this also on my YouTube for several days. And my tours of Via Dolorosa, Jerusalem, the recordings are also getting published on my YouTube channel. For 1 week, it's going to be there. I'll be uploading 2 more episodes. It's going to be the 2 tours of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre with a very detailed exploration of all the sites inside the church. So these tours will be uploaded tonight. Hopefully both of them. Well, yeah, that's basically it. So this is me on the steps of the General Staff building. I start my talks of the of Impressionists with the photographs of one of the best guides, one of the best art teachers and art critics of the modern art of the 19th and 20th century of Europe, of France, Natalia Brodska. You know all the titles. For those of you who have seen previous tours, I don't really need to repeat myself, but for those watching for the first time, everything I know and all the love, you know, of art, of Impressionists that I have, it's thanks to Natalia Brodska. Нет, нет, зайчик, мне нужно это. Окей, держи, все. Okay, so, если мне потребуется, Гриш, я попрошу, хорошо? Okay, I'm so sorry. Last time, we talked a little bit about the collectors, but I had the names confused. It's just the writings were just shifted because I added some other photographs. So I just wanted to start with a clear page, so to speak, and to introduce you again to the people thanks to whom we actually have what we have in the Hermitage. So basically, there were 2 families, the Shukin family and the Morozov family. They were both textile kings of Russia, so to speak. They were terribly rich, generous, and had really good taste in art. There were several brothers. They would normally be big families. So Dmitry Shukin focused on collection of Dutch art mostly, and he had his house in Moscow. The building is still there. It now belongs to the French embassy of France. I think so. And this is the photograph from his museum. Well, for example, in Russia, officially in the museums, at least, we do not have Vermeer, but we used to have, thanks to Shukin. Later on, it was sold. I think it was sold in the 1930s, but I'm not entirely sure. Ivan Shukin, another brother, who, well, you see Ignacio Zualaga, he was mostly in the art of the 20th century, but it wasn't really about the Impressionism, so to speak. And, well, we have a lot of Spanish art. Zualaga is the 20th century. El Greco, well, it's not the 20th, he was, I would say, very much focused on Spanish art, especially religious art, but he gave a lot of attention to the 20th century and artists of the 20th century. And the third brother, Sergei Shukin, is exactly the one who was collecting the art of Impressionism, post-Impressionism. And as you know, the collection of Shukin was nationalized after the revolution, and it became the property of the state. And then there is another family, Morozovs, also textile kings. And Ivan Morozov, just like Sergei Shukin, he was also after Impressionists. And exactly, Ivan Morozov liked the works of Maurice Denis. And this is the painting he started with. He saw it in one of the galleries with one of the marchands. Well, marchands were art dealers in Paris. And he liked this work. He liked the colors. He purchased the work. He slept on it. And then he decided to order another one. And this is the painting we talked about, right? The Sunbathers. And, well, Morozov, like I can't understand. He really fell in love with the colors. He liked it very much, and he commissioned to Maurice Denis big number of paintings. Um, and they would be decorating the big drawing room in his house. This is the actual photo of Morozov's um, well, drawing room in the in Moscow. And several years ago, when there was a big exchange project between Moscow and St. Petersburg, because Morozov's collection was also nationalized. And then they were all collected in Moscow. And then after the Second World War, thanks to Pablo Picasso's involvement in the situation, um, the collections would be combined and then split 50-50, and half of it would be given to the Hermitage and half to the Museum of Alexander Pushkin in Moscow. And then there was this big exchange in 2019, and for that exhibition, the Hermitage recreated the room, this room of the Sergei of Ivan Morozov's house in Moscow. And now we're going to see the works, the originals of Maurice Denis, exactly the way they looked at the house of Morozov. So welcome to Moscow. And Maurice Denis, we talked a lot about Denis last time. Half of the tour was about Van Gogh, and half of was about Maurice Denis. And Maurice Denis was not an impressionist, and that's what he was contemporary to impressionists. And but of course, it was not. It wasn't about the same values, the same techniques used. Of course, it was very different, and you see different colors. You see the ways how different ideas would be expressed in the art, and well, the Nabi. Why they call themselves Nabi? Well, the prophets, because they called for they wanted to erase those boundaries between fine arts, between interior decorations, between theater art, furniture making, everything. So everything, the entire world basically was it was a canvas, and they created sort of a concept, like a big concept of art, and it was supposed to be overwhelming, and the whole consuming. So that's why they call themselves Nabi, of prophets. And here in this drawing room of Ivan Morozov, Morozov, by the way, he just said, "Okay, I want you to decorate my my drawing room. So it's up to you to decide what exactly you're going to paint." And Maurice Denis, who was going to Italy, he was inspired by mythology, the story of Cupid and Psyche. Well, it's not exactly, it's a story that was told in the 2nd century Common Era by the writer and philosopher and the poet Puleus. I hope I pronounced it right. And Cupid and Psyche, we all know this story very well. And this is the vision of Maurice Denis of it. So, and now, basically, from painting to painting, we'll be telling you the story of Cupid and Psyche, and it comes into really a great story. So first of all, there lived a girl. There were three girls, the three sisters. The two sisters were married. They were beautiful ones, but the Psyche was the most beautiful one, and people would admire her. And Venus, who was supposed to be the most beautiful, and she was supposed to be worshipped by men and women, the mortals, so to speak, the muggles. She kind of noticed that there were no more sacrifices, there were no longer gifts brought to the temple of Venus, because people worshipped Psyche. And this is when she kind of, she freaked out, and she got really mad. And then she asked her son, Cupid, to go and curse her. The idea was that she was supposed to be cursed by Cupid to fall in love with the most miserable man, with the worst man on the planet. But when Cupid saw her, and this is exactly that episode, it was love at first sight. He couldn't resist. And then he had, and then he was in a predicament because he didn't want to let down his mother. Then, so the two sisters were married, but time would go, and nobody would actually propose to Psyche. So what was her father supposed to do? So eventually, he talked to to gods, and he was told that she was cursed, but from the very beginning, from the moment she was born, that for her beauty, she would never really have a mortal, just a human being to marry her, and for her beauty, she would have to sacrifice her own life. So she had to pay for it with her own life, and a big beast was supposed to come and eat her. So just to save, well, not to save her, but to make it happen sooner. I'm not sure why. So her father brought her to the top of the cliff and left her there waiting for the beast to come. This is another episode. This is the second story, and you see this man not really happy, absolutely miserable. I have no idea why he actually just left her there. I have no idea. So, but these people are miserable, but like they're not going to do anything about it. But you see over there in the corner, there is a Cupid, just waiting for her to fall asleep there on the cliff. I hope she strapped herself. And he has a plan, and he just waits for the sun to go down and for her to go, to fall asleep. She falls asleep, and this is when Cupid very quickly comes and picks her up on a cloud, and Cupid, blows the cloud, and the wind takes her to the beautiful palace, the most beautiful palace that ever existed, somewhere in the skies, this type of story. Oh my goodness. And then, so she stays there in the palace, and there is a condition that during the day she would have to be alone there, but every night, her husband, an invisible husband, a husband will be coming in every night for a night together. Woohoo. But there was one condition: she was not supposed to be seen. Her husband was not supposed to be seen, so she wasn't supposed to know that he was a Cupid. And days would go by. She kind of really, she would grow fonder of him. But during the day, she was, bored, and she kind of missed her family, who, by the way, had no idea what happened to her. And this is when she asks permission from her secret husband to, for her sisters to come and see her during the day. And so he allowed the sisters come, and they're a bit jealous, of her living in luxury in a whimsical place, and they told her about the curse, about the beast, and they told her that her husband is actually preparing her, like feeding her and waiting for her to be ripe, to be eaten by him. And so they told her so to finally find out how her husband looked like and to kill him with a sword. So sort of a preventive measures. And that's what she decides to do. After another night, she takes a lamp and takes it to his face. And then she sees how beautiful her husband is. And she's like, oh, wow. And then a drop of the hot oil drips on his chest. And this is the moment she just, she realizes how lucky she is, and that he's not a beast. And then she thinks they will be living happily ever after. But then this happens. He wakes up, and he gets mad and leaves her. She's miserable. She travels in different corners of the world to find her husband, and she comes to Venus. Venus is mad, and she knows that Cupid never really helped her, and she knows that Cupid is in love with her. And she had, and Venus wants to wants to get rid of her as soon as possible. And she tells her, well, you will find your love, but you need to do something. And she asks her to go to Persephone underground, to the underground kingdom, to get a chest with the secret of eternal beauty and eternal life. And so Venus just asked for this. She wanted to have it, and she asked Psyche to do this. And Psyche gets hold of this chest, but then she realizes that, and it's like, the Pandora story, and she realized that, well, in her hands she actually had that secret, the wisdom, of eternal beauty and life, and she opens it, but it had this, the charms, and she falls asleep. Then Cupid comes and takes her with him, and he saves her. This is the moment the Cupid comes and saves her from Venus. And by the way, I mentioned last time um, that Maurice Denis would always use his wife as a model, but by that time his wife had already had like 5 children or so, so she really couldn't really be a model for Psyche. But Venus looked like exactly like Martha Denis. So Martha is everywhere in Maurice Denis' art, everywhere. So eventually, Cupid takes her. She wakes up, and they need to get done with it. They need to do something to be together ever after, But she is a human being. But Cupid is he's a mythological creature. He's God. He's son of Venus. So it had to be solved somehow. And also, you see that next to this painting, there are also like really small rectangular illustrations. They were also part of the commission. So you should see it not just a work of art, but you should see it together as like as a big combination of all of it together. So that's exactly what Nabis would be after. They would try to make everything into art, and to show that there was no really, there wasn't supposed to be made any distinctions and different, well, let's say that it was supposed to be everything could be turned into art. And that's what we see in this room. So this is everything you see in this room. It's basically Maurice Denis, and all the artworks are original. So there is one solution here. The Cupid had to make her a goddess. Otherwise, they had zero chances of being together. And he had already violated all the possible rules for actually seeing a human being. But he was so madly in love with her. So eventually, they come to see Zeus, and he says, okay. He says, I don't mind. Okay, let's make her a goddess, and then you will live happily ever after. So, and that's exactly the story. So eventually, it's a happy end, and everyone is happy. That's the story. And when so all these paintings were inspired by the views of Italy. But of course, if Maurice Denis, if he had been an impressionist, it would have looked very different. There would have been very different colors. You can definitely say, okay, it's not impression, it's post-impressionist, it's contemporary impressionism, but it's not really impressionistic manner. So we have to also understand that. And Maurice Denis was inspired by Italy, and you see, some Italian landscapes. But other than that, of course, it's whimsical. It's this unusual colors, not natural colors here. For example, they're all pink, but it looks well. But we kind of realize that maybe they are pink because of the lights of the setting sun. So this is him, and Cupid and Psyche together. Well, well, all these stories. So eventually, all these works would be delivered to Moscow, but Maurice Denis never actually saw it ready. Then Ivan Morozov invited him to Moscow and covered for the trip. And when Denis came, so Maurice Denis visited Moscow, and he stayed in the house of Ivan Morozov. Um, he first didn't like it because the room was grayish and it looked like a mouse gray, something like that. So he added a couple of more artworks, and he added exactly those four rectangular sections because, um, well, just to add more color and make less gray of it. He also uh, suggested ordering some other, some other means of decoration. For example, in France, they commissioned, Morozov commissioned these vases. Also, Maurice Denis um, designed furniture. So eventually, we could say, of course, the furniture is not original. So there were also several sculptures, but the sculptures and also some of the vases are, well, they stayed in Moscow. It's, as I said, the Soviets would be, in the Soviet time, the collection would be split like 50-50, but without really big logic behind it. So, but well, luckily, the entire room is, all the paintings are all together, it would be like, it would have been like separation of like really siblings, all the brothers and sisters. It would be horrible. And also you see that there is this glass ceiling uh in the house of Morozov. Morozov actually had this big glass ceiling for art, but in the Hermitage, of course, they could not do that. But this is the imitation, so it's basically the number of lamps imitating, the glass ceiling. But it looks nice, and it's really hard to tell that these are just lamps. So this is how we have just traveled to Moscow, to the drawing room of Ivan Morozov. And what is also important, that Ivan Morozov never really had a museum. He never really made a museum, for everyone to see it. Unlike Sergei Shukin. So Shukin had a museum, and he would be given guided tours there to the visitors. But Morozov, no. That's why all those artworks were never really seen by public. And when finally these works were put up uh, for the exhibition, it was a sensation. But of course, back then, before it was made into like one big room, they would just hang in there, and it didn't look like it didn't give you this feeling of a concept. It would be just a collection of paintings done in the same in the same palette, but there was no really big concept behind it. So, but now we know that, of course, there was it really made sense to put it all together. And now Oleg has taken us. And by the way, thank you everyone for your greetings on arrival of Oleg's first baby. He's touched, and he's saying thank you for your kind wishes. And we're just passing the room with the art of Maurice Denis. And here is one more room before I take you to a surprise place and before we have a Q&A. So this is a very special room. And it looks weird. It looks like, part of the room, like these columns were just cut all cut from a wall of a house somehow, and then brought to the Hermitage. It's not exactly like this. And if you look at the colors, and you will see that the colors, the palette is quite not 100%, but really quite similar to the works of Maurice Denis. Well, this is not Maurice Denis, but this is also the artist of the Nabi group, or the Nabi movement. And is a big name in the world of 20th century art. and we also see other artworks in the room. They also belong to him. And this is Pierre Bonnard. Pierre Bonnard is the great artist and illustrator of the 20th century. He, well, like, his biography is not tragic, you know. There was no really big ups and downs. There were no catastrophes. There were no travels to exotic lands. He didn't have 10 children, you know. He didn't have to cut his own ear, and you know, things like that. He wasn't average, you know. His life was, well, you can't say it was boring, but you know, he was just, you know, just a biography. And unfortunately, there's only one museum. I didn't know that there actually is a museum of Pierre Bonnard, but there is one opened quite recently in France. And well, let me know if you have been there, because I really had never really heard of the museum. But when I started well, my research preparation for these tours, then well, I was surprised, but it was a good surprise that there finally is a museum. So Pierre Bonnard, he was French, and all his life he would be painting France, different different nooks of France in different areas. He traveled all over the country, and I like the self-portrait. It's so bright. There's so much air in it and so much sunlight, and it gives me, I don't know, it's so cozy to look at it, and it's so peaceful. I don't know, I just love it. So, and this is like, well, traveling along France, and depicting it. So that's what his life was about, and his art was about. But of course, Paris would always be the, well. Oh, sorry. Hold on a second. That was too quick. But Paris would always be the his favorite place, and his Paris. We know he referred, the way he painted Paris. We will be talking about it. Paris was like a model, basically. Paris was modeling, was there for him to you know, for Bonnard, and he somehow managed to get across, you know, the character of the city. So we will see it in his paintings. But before we see Paris, we need to travel a little bit around France. Well, the Seine, near Vernon. Again, it's not Impressionism at all, and you can clearly see the choice of colors, a lot of pastel colors, bright palette, and yeah. So there is, you know, a way of impressionistic manner. He admired Impressionists. He particularly liked the works of Claude Monet, and he even lived not for some time. Bonnard even rented a place not far from Giverny, where Claude Monet lived and had his studio. So he admired his works, and you can see some, well, you can see some techniques that Bonnard borrowed from Impressionists, but obviously you see that it's not the same, and it would be, you know, the place, the landscapes would always have a character in this or that way, and the character would be transmitted with the colors. So he didn't really need to paint a portrait to kind of get across a certain idea. And well, Paris, there are like uh, dozens and dozens of paintings of Paris. Paris in the morning, Paris in the evening, Paris in the sunlight, Paris in the twilight, and you know, and whatnot. That was it. So this is Morning in Paris, and I love this artwork. I love the shade. I love the colors of the morning, and they, well, just several brush strokes of the skies, and then yes. So what was exactly the impressionistic manner is that the same patches of this pink color would also be you would also be found all around the painting. So this is, this is the one of the impressionistic manners. But other than that, well, it's just that pink that kind of gives you the certain feeling. And then even in Paris, there you go, different colors, different shades, and people, but people would be just, like with Pissarro, we talked about it, that Pissarro would just paint the city and people would just be there, but it would be like a big crowd, like a big substance, and that was it. And again with Pierre Bonnard, it was not about people. It was about people creating this special vibe and the feeling of the city. That was it. Different kinds of people, different colors, but just that. And I like it how here this yellow, yellow patches here, and here, they would kind of be the center of the composition. But how vivid, thanks to this yellow, the red and the blue is. And obviously, well, there were so many different movements in art. So the Nabis, then pointillism, which was like, about art done in the shape of the dots, of points, dots. And then it all was, it was getting popular, but there were like several artists that worked in this manner, such as Seurat, for example, Georges Seurat. And Seurat was a friend of was a friend of Pierre Bonnard. So you kind of notice, the influences, well, the borrowings, but it was not about Bonnard. It was about something else. It was about Paris and just trying to seize the moment and paint it in a very special manner. So the corner of Paris 1905, uh, that's the vibe. That's the vibe. You cannot see the people. The people are just there. You can't really see the trees. They're there, but you can't really see the trees. And then the patches of color, bright pink, bright red, and then the rest is just, it's just like a backdrop. So yeah, I would say that this is the portrait of the city, not the people. It's not exactly just the landscape because there's more to it. So that's Pierre Bonnard. And um, both, like it applies to art of Maurice Denis and Pierre Bonnard, that at the Hermitage we only have their artworks done before the First World War. When the First World War started, Russian merchants were no longer able to go to France to purchase the artworks from France and then carry it through the customs and all things like that. It was no longer possible. So basically, the First World War put everything, to an end. Uh, After the First World War, the revolution happened. Well, I mean, not even after the revolution happened in 1917. While the war was still going on. So, and there was no way, So basically, what we have, and it applies to almost all the artwork that we have in the Impressionism and Post-Impressionism collection is before the First World War. There would be exceptions. We will be talking about some of them, such as with Matisse. There would be exceptions, there, and as you know, of course, that there's also artworks that would be the trophies brought by the Soviet army after the Second World War. So obviously, this would be a different story. But I would say the biggest part is the art created before the First World War. And well, this is quite special. It's called Triptych, the Mediterranean. So Ivan Morozov commissioned to Maurice Denis these three rectangular artworks. Nobody else, none of other artists would see this as not just a work of art, but as a means, as an integral part of an interior, not just a painting, but part of the interior, right? And Morozov needed that. So Morozov had in his hall he had columns, and he asked Denis to to create the artworks to fit in between those columns. And this is how this triptych was made. And thanks to those vivid colors of yellow and green and intense colors, also the colors on the orange, you see that this is a hot summer day, right? You don't really need to see the sun to realize that this is a very hot, very very hot day, scorching heat maybe, and you see people hiding in the shade, wearing white, and the white is not really 100% white. You see that there is a lot of blue, there is a lot of freshness in the painting, and you see the dots. So yeah, you can clearly say that pointillism did have an influence on Pierre Bonnard, but it wasn't just about that. Pierre Bonnard, he, at that time in general, not just the Nabi artists. We're gonna have a Q&A after I'm done with Pierre Bonnard, and before the surprise, the off-top surprise, Pierre Bonnard was just like almost all the artists at that time. He was absolutely crazy about the Japanese art. Shortly before that, Japan, opened up, for the world. It stopped being isolated, and this is when the world fell in love with Japanese art. And here you kind of see this two-dimensional kind of simplistic manner of Japanese art. I'm not saying primitive. No, it's not. But you kind of start seeing it. And then after the First World War, it's going to look even more Japanese. But this, you kind of really start seeing this kind of a manner, because the trees, they don't really look, there is no really volume. It's just the light, but you don't see much volume here. And this is exactly what with kind of a Japanese traits you can see here. Other than that, it looks like the colors. I'm in love with the colors. And now you know the story. Now you understand why the Hermitage is actually recreated those. Ella, this is so cute. The kids enjoying themselves in the shade. Lovely. I just love these details. So I would normally come to the Hermitage, and I would spend quite a lot of time in the Nabi rooms. I liked it. I like the colors. It's like a color therapy to me. I love it. I'm not a big fan of the Nabi in general, but the colors are fantastic. Absolutely. So that's why in the Hermitage there are actually these columns, right? Because it was supposed to be seen and not just as artworks by themselves. And you see, there's no frame, for them. They take the whole room. They're huge, but thanks to the approach, you kind of realize that these were parts of the interior. Like this is the part of of a wall, and it's like being sort of brought to you from elsewhere. And now let's have a Q&A, because I think it's quite logical to have it now, and then I'll be taking you to a surprise off top, I would say. The chat is back on. Feel free to send in the questions. I'll remind you that next Sunday, I'm taking you. Hi, Dolly. Good to see you. So next time, I'm taking you to the rooms with Picasso, and it's gonna be only about Picasso. Hi, Ashrid. Happy Easter. Yeah, welcome to Paris. Basically, today we've already been to St. Petersburg. Well, the releasing before that, St. Petersburg, a bit of Moscow, a bit of Mediterranean, right? And we're also going to be doing some time travels. Yeah, Cindy, I don't know. I find this artwork so pacifying. I don't know. There is something about those colors. There's something. I don't know. I love it. Who was the painter of the Sienne near Vernon? Oh, it was Pierre Bonnard. Yeah, it's Pierre Bonnard. So today I've only shown you Maurice Denis and Pierre Bonnard. That's it. Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, yeah, I feel so international as well. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, whenever there is a cat or a dog on the tour, I try to show them because it's cute. Yeah, and speaking of Dolly, Dolly has a birthday today. I'm gonna be sticking to this tradition not to greet, before the birthday comes, but I hope you're getting festive and you have something planned. Maybe a visit to a Claro, to a restaurant in Sarona, German colony in Tel Aviv, where your son is a chef. Yeah, so birthday is tomorrow, so I'm not wishing you any happy returns of the day yet, but I'm just to remind you that it's not going to be an analyst's birthday because tomorrow, John from York, he's just had a wonderful tour, Easter themed tour on his YouTube channel. So if you have time tonight, just go and check the recorded. I think it's gonna be available. I just got a glimpse of it because I needed to to arrange for the tour and Grisha for tomorrow. So I only just watched just a little bit of the tour. Great tour. But tomorrow, John and I are gonna be doing an interview. So the interview part of it is pre-recorded, and then there's going to be a live session where you could ask me questions, ask John questions. So it was like his way to, um, to ask me different kinds of questions to see how these several months have been, and like what's the next step, and well, things like that. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. I will. I will. Just a minute. Grisha, Grish, could you please go brush your teeth? Okay? Thank you. Sorry. So now I think it's time for the surprise. Again, this is not something I actually planned to do. I would have normally skipped it or maybe left it like for the end because I know it's about impressionism and post-impressionism. But we are in the general staff building, and well, it's Easter. Well, it's not really my Easter. I am Christian. I am Orthodox Christian, not a religious one. I'm more of an like agnostic, agnosticism, right? There is this word agnostic, so I'm kind of more into this. But as you know, I have a great respect of all religions, and well, as you know, I'm also sharing my recordings of Via Dolorosa tours as of last year as a way to celebrate Catholic Easter. And there is something else I want to show you. Okay, well, anyway, I'm gonna turn off the chat for now. And well, let's return to the house, to the building. And so on our way to see Picasso, which is going to happen only in the next episode, and the links are all in the chat. I haven't uploaded the tours to my website yet, but it will be there. It also will be there on Together Virtually website and on the collective website. And so as you see, we are passing a number of rooms. All those rooms used to be the rooms occupied by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because half of the general staff building belonged to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the other half, part of the building. There was Home Affairs, Domestic Affairs, and also part of the general staff of the army. And according to that tradition, every institution was supposed to have a church. And yes, it's not exactly Orthodox Easter to visit an Orthodox church, but most people never really come this far. Most visitors want to see, Impressionists, and I understand that. And maybe Fabergé, which we did in the first two episodes, right? I totally get it. And very few people actually go this far to see the church. And you don't really pass by the church because it's a kind of a, a roundabout. So, but I think this is the best timing to visit this church. And it's not just the church. Well, okay, the church is consecrated to Alexander Nevsky, and well, it's an Orthodox church, so you wouldn't find the benches, and you see the iconostasis or icon stand. Why is this so special? Well, first of all, it's important to understand that this church is related to Alexander the First, the Russian emperor who was grandson of Catherine the Great, and he was the one who defeated Napoleon, and he was seen as a savior, and to commemorate the victory over Napoleon, there was pulled this big obelisk in the heart of the palace square. And well, you can see it even now as a backdrop, behind me. You will be seeing it more. This is him. And the church is kind of consecrated both to Alexander Nevsky, who is patron saint of St. Petersburg, and well, it just happened. So it's also about Alexander the First and like what he did. And because of that, in the heart of the church is not just an iconostasis. This is the portable icon stand that belonged to Alexander the First. And this icon stand he would be taking with him in the battlefields. This is not the iconostasis Alexander took with him when he fought against Napoleon, but this is the exact copy of it. So, and this copy was made at times of Alexander because the original iconostasis was damaged. It was just used so often; it traveled so much all across the countries, so it was just, it wasn't really in the good condition. So eventually, and well, this is Alexander Nevsky over here. It looks like a shear basically, and this is this iconostasis would be traveling with Alexander, and you could say this is, well, there's no much difference between the original because it's the exact copy. And this is just one story. Okay, well, this is not just an iconostasis; it's the one that belonged to a monarch, to a Romanov. That's great. But that's not the entire story. Alexander the First, he died in 1825, and he died in mysterious circumstances. And he died not even in St. Petersburg. He died in Taganrog in the south of Russia when he was on a business trip there, and this iconostasis was with him, and he died just next to his iconostasis. So this is the photo. This is the photo of this iconostasis. This is the earliest photo of it. It's still when it still was kept in the house where Alexander the First died. Then later on, closer to the 20th century, this iconostasis was taken and brought to St. Petersburg. So this photo was taken, I assume it's like 1880s. No, it could be 1870s, late 1870s. Then it was brought to Russia by the Romanovs, by the way. And this will be placed in Alexander Palace in Tsarskoye Selo in St. Petersburg. For those of you who have been watching me for a long time, then you know that Alexander Palace is a very important place because Alexander Palace was actually, well, it was named after Alexander because it was the present from Catherine the Great for an apple of her eye for her most favorite grandchild, Alexander. And later on, it would be the most cherished home to Nicholas II and Alexandra Fedorovna, so the last Romanovs and their children. And this iconostasis is actually, this is the photograph taken at the turn of the 20th century in Alexander Palace. So exactly this iconostasis, the original, without any changes, was kept there in the home of Nicholas II. Thank you, Grisha. Thank you so much. We're going to bed very soon, and this iconostasis normally would be standing in the white hall. And by the way, if you missed those tours of the home of the lost Romanovs, uh, contact me and we'll see what we can do. There are quite a number of tours, and they're all available for my supporters, of course, 24/7. But we can figure it out if you miss those tours. And but since it was portable, it was basically like a folded shirms, right? You can see that. So they could just fold it and it would be a pile of, of wood, like maybe this thick. So it was relatively light, and it could be easily, placed different rooms. And if you remember, Alexandra Fedorovna, after giving birth like every year, basically less than every 2 years, once in every 2 years, um, she wasn't a healthy one, from the very beginning. So she had, health issues. And after one of the labors, she couldn't really walk. And she spent about half a year in bed and then in a wheelchair. So that iconostasis was in her bedroom. And she prayed to it every day and every evening. So that iconostasis. And also in this church, there is this, equipment for the service. Uh, this was basically, it was like a portable church. It also belonged to Alexander I, and it was used and abused every day, regardless of the place. And it was with him when he fought against Napoleon. And this was also used, and this was used by the Romanovs after that. And then it was kept as a well as a museum exhibit, as a memory of Alexander I. This is used for the bread and wine for communion, and this is all of this. Uh, yes, it was made from gold, of course. It's gold, and it's the precious enamel, and the box is original. Everything is original. And one more thing. Again, this is Orthodox Christianity, but I don't really think it matters this much. There is just one more thing I feel like sharing with you. So this cross belonged to a army priest, Vasily Vasikovsky. Oh, Gregory, I'll answer the question and I'll open up the chat for questions. We will talk about it. So Vasily Vasikovsky, he was just an army priest, just that. Actually, he was just a civilian, but he lost his entire family to a disease, and he stayed all alone. So he decided to become a priest and to join the army. And he was wounded a number of times. And eventually, in the war against Napoleon, so in one of the battles, he was mortally wounded. But he would always carry this cross with him. After he died, the bullet that killed him was placed into that cross. And then it became known to the Romanovs, the story of that priest and how fearless he was in the battlefield, praying with and for, making confessions, just of the dying officers, because according to this Christian tradition, a true Christian was supposed to confess before death. So he was there under the bullets, under the cannonball fire. He was there, so it became known to Romanovs, and they kept this cross as a relic, and it was a very important thing. It was, it became sort of a kind of a kind of a symbol, kind of a I'm not even sure. Um, yeah, it's kind of a protection, for the Royal Army. So this is the cross that belonged to a human, well, just a person, not even to Romanovs, and the bullet that killed that human. So I think this is really powerful. This is really strong. And since it's basically kind of on the way to the next room, and Alex filmed it. However, I didn't really ask him to film it, but since it is there, and many of you are so much interested, of course, these are the vestments that will be used in this church. And apart from it, for example, Emperor Alexander II got married for the second time after his first wife died. He married to a woman, which I talked about, quite a nasty story, but he married next to this iconostasis. Many children of the Emperor Nicholas I were baptized next to this iconostasis, by the way. So this is not just an iconostasis, and it's not just a church at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Not, it's not like that. And since many of you have been with me to the Alexander Palace, since many of you are so interested in the story of the last Romanovs, I just thought it would be a good idea to take you here, and I hope you don't mind. I know it's not about the Impressionists. I know it's not, but since it's Easter, and well, I hope you're okay with me showing it to you. And also, I didn't want to start just briefly, kind of giving you a little bit of Picasso and then skipping it just for like 6 days. So just I didn't want to keep you waiting. And this is exactly the monument I was talking about. This obelisk, which is 600,000 kilograms. Uh, so this is exactly that big monument to victory over Napoleon. It's called Alexander Column. You can't see it from here, but over there is an angel with a cross. But you might remember it from the tours I did in St. Petersburg, right? Oh, the sound seems to be changed. Oh, I don't know what the problem is. Let me see.
Have you been able to hear me though? I'm sorry, I haven't noticed anything, but have you been able to hear me? Or do I need to repeat it? Because I can. Okay, so did you get it that this is the iconostasis that belonged to Nicholas II? Eventually, it would be placed in the Alexander Palace, and Alexandra, the wife of Nicholas II, would keep it also in her room when she was bedridden, and then she was had to move in the wheelchair. Oh, now it's okay. Distorted and unclear. I'm not sure what the problem is. There was no indication of that. Yeah, well, okay, okay. So, and then as I said, that next to this iconostasis, Nicholas I prayed, and his children were baptized. Some of them were baptized there, and in that church. And then also Alexander II, the one who abolished slavery in Russia, he married to his second wife there, next to, well, the service was in well, next to this iconostasis. So yeah. Well, I'm glad you found it interesting. I'm so sorry for the sound. I have no idea what went wrong. Um, could be anything. Well, I hope it's not going to happen again. I might need to actually buy the new headset because it looks like the problem could be with this one. Oh, it was good to you with the sound. I'm not sure then what happened. Okay, so this will be it. And just once again, so next time I'm taking you on 3 tours on Saturday, sorry. I'm taking you to Tel Aviv's American German colony. I would say that's it just happened so that I have done about a month ago. I did a tour in the first train station in Tel Aviv, and then Jaffa, and then I decided to give you the tour of the station in Jerusalem, the same station, just but the other end of it, and then I took you to German colony in Jerusalem. And then I thought, okay, well, I could take it to Sarona German colony in Tel Aviv. And now it looks like there's one more colony. And it's kind of weird not to take it there and not to kind of, wrap this series of tours about German communities in the Holy Land in the 19th century. So I'm taking you there next Saturday, and I'll be trying to do tours on Jerusalem, on tours of Israel, and a lot of tours on Jerusalem every week. Let's see how it goes. And thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, this is not about Impressionists, but since it was there, like, why not? Why not sharing it, especially on Easter? So I'm glad you like that part of the story. Then I'm taking you to Kutaisi as well on the 6th of April on Saturday, on a pre-recorded tour. It will be a Jewish quarter, a Armenian churches in Kutaisi, interesting stuff. Off-beaten. Kutaisi is the first city in the west of Georgia that I visited, so I filmed some areas of it as well. And I'll be taking you to just a second. I'm not sure when exactly this is. So Iranian Bao, this is another Romanov residence that, well, I premiered yesterday, the first episode. It's still available on my YouTube channel, so you can catch up with it. And next episode is going to be on Saturday. On Sunday, April 7th, I'm going to Saloniki Tbilisi for another tour. I think there's just not really many tours left in Saloniki, but we'll see. Definitely one more, maybe the second, maybe another one. And of course, Pablo Picasso of the Hermitage collection next Sunday. Oh, thank you, Carla. Thank you so much. Thank you. So happy Easter to everyone celebrating, and Shavua Tov to my Jewish friends, and I hope you've had a great weekend. And well, I'll see some of you tomorrow on the interview with John. You can find the link on Together Virtually website. I don't have the link right now at hand, and I would appreciate your support. If you enjoyed the tour, you could leave a tip on PayPal. Buy me a coffee is a bit more preferable due to commissions, but it's up to you, obviously, whichever is convenient. I totally understand that buy me a coffee doesn't work with everyone. You know, some of the credit cards and some of the banks, it's not an easy option. I appreciate that. And well, thank you for your support. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for watching the recordings, and two more episodes of Via Dolorosa, mainly Church of the Holy Sepulchre, are going to be uploaded shortly. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your support. Thank you for just, making it possible for me to do what I love the most. Uh, Taking you on tours of different places, and what time tomorrow with John. So it's 7 p.m. London time, so Greenwich time. And yeah, well, it's gonna be confusing if I start converting, and I probably will make it wrong. So I don't wanna do that. So you can just check. It's easy, with London, it's easy to convert, right? You don't really need to do much. Uh Oh, I'm not sure, but it's 7 p.m., but I'm not sure. So if they switch the clocks, well, this is gonna be confusing. Let me see. Let me see. Together actually website if it's there right now. I'm gonna do it right now. Um. Okay, so it still says it's 7 p.m. I'm gonna share the link right now. John has chosen the worst screenshot ever, but that's okay. I look horrible there, but that's fine. That's the link. Thank you, Ashley, for checking that. I've also done. I've also checked it. So here is the link. In Europe, the clocks are switched on the March 31st usually. Yes, so I know that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for reminding me this. Georgia is not doing this at all, and this is also confusing. Israel did it also recently. It's confusing. It's very confusing. Yeah. Thank you so much. Here the time has moved to, oh yeah, 1 hour. Ooh, okay. Well, now, Natalie, we are not 3 but 2 hours apart. Thank you for joining, everyone. It's time to put Grisha to bed. School tomorrow. Yay! Thank goodness. But I so enjoyed being with him. And he Well, looks like he'll be joining me next Sunday as well. We'll see. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for interest in what I show and what I do. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you tomorrow. And yeah, well, Dolly, you don't have to join if you cannot. I hope you have really good plans for tomorrow. Yeah, mini jet lag. Yeah, I know how it feels. Bye bye.